The late Professor Lewis Elton was one of the most important figures in teaching in higher education in the 20th century. He's a very strong advocate for the importance of teaching and learning, and he pioneered some of the very first courses anywhere for university staff in the early 1970s. Lewis was a continuing innovator in his own teaching and a great encourager of innovation in others. He was a provocateur, and he was always asking difficult questions at meetings and at conferences, and he wanted to prick the complacency of people that were just taking things for granted in the whole teaching area. Lewis started as a professor of nuclear physics and head of the physics department at the University of Surrey, just before the University of Surrey was designated in the 60s. After being in physics for some years, he established in 1969 the Institute for Educational Technology because he decided that his interest in innovation in university teaching was so great that he couldn't continue in his conventional disciplinary role. And he took the radical step of establishing this centre as one of the first teaching learning centres in universities anywhere. The Institute, as he created it, became a powerhouse of innovation, and many people that studied there or worked there went on beyond Surrey to make a substantial impact on teaching and learning, not just in the UK, but in other parts of the world. And in fact, many of the people there later became full professors of higher education. Personally, I graduated at the University of Surrey in exactly the same year that Lewis established the Institute for Educational Technology, and I became his first full-time PhD student in higher education. Nowadays, you just couldn't make that transition, but then it seemed okay. It was a very, very stimulating time for myself and all of my peers there. We felt like, and I think we were, pioneering a whole new area of inquiry. That is, research on innovations in teaching and learning in higher education. And we were doing it in such a way that we're all learning together, Lewis along with the rest of us, students, research staff and so on. Now, I learnt many things from him, and as a physics undergraduate, he taught me in the first year class. And one of the things I learned was not to be fooled by his high quality lectures and his stimulating demonstrations. The problem was, when Lewis presented things, I felt that the ideas was presented so clearly that I thought I'd learned. And I understood the danger of taking that approach when I almost failed as the only subject I nearly failed in my undergraduate degree, his particular subject. So we need to be careful about how we judge a good quality teaching. It isn't just in the eye of the beholder. Later, when I was doing my PhD with him, and as someone who myself I'd become very active in student affairs on educational issues, I learned from him about the importance of taking an unrelenting focus on student learning as distinct on teaching per se. I also learned about the importance of following one's passion, both in teaching and in research, and in a sense doing what I thought was right, what I could argue was right. And I also learned that a very strong interest in teaching was not incompatible with a very strong interest in research. The two went together. And I developed a very long-term commitment to innovations in my own teaching and working with others to develop innovations that they were pursuing. As a serial innovator myself, I'm actually delighted that the University of Surrey has established the Lewis Elton Award for Educational Innovation. Educational excellence is about far more than doing normal teaching well. It's about noticing and facing the significant problems that occur all the time and that are challenging us day by day, year by year. And it's also about the excitement of doing things differently and also demonstrating the effectiveness of those interesting and challenging things that we do. This award is important because it recognises those people we need in universities to chart the path for the future. If we continue the way that we are at the moment, in some of our teaching and learning practices, universities will not survive in their present form. We, collectively, as a profession, have to reinvent our practices to be meaningful in a rapidly changing world. And that takes courage, persistence, and a willingness to think differently. These are all characteristics that Lewis had. Those who receive the Lewis Elton Award are people that demonstrate these characteristics as well. And they are the people that will help lead us into the unknowable future.